responding to is concussions will lead to the abolishment of full contact high school football. My opponent's secondary claims were concussions are more dangerous to high school athletes than any other level. A single concussion can ruin the academic career of a student athlete, and concussions lead to negative psychological issues. My claim is that concussions will not lead to the abolishment of full contact high school football. I want to note that I'm not arguing that concussions are good. And so my secondary claims are: 1, action is being taken about concussions in high school football. 2, the NFL suicides that were mentioned in my opponent's speech are not directly linked to the high school athletes. And 3, even with concussions, the popularity of football will not allow for it to be abolished. So I'm only responding to claims 1 and 3 made by my opponent. In claim 1, my opponent said, high school athletes do not have the same caliber care as college or professional football teams have. My response is, while he was saying his speech, he used too many hypothetical examples, like when he was talking about high school footballs having 200 athletes to 1 trainer. We don't know where that information came from. However, as a response to that, action is being taken. An article in the Chicago Tribune says, the Ohio High School Athletic Association has devised rules to immediately remove a player and provide him with medical attention upon signs of a concussion. The article also states, between 2009 and 2011, 33 states plus the District of Columbia passed laws aimed at preventing concussions in youth sports. And another 15 states have introduced legislation this year, according to the National Conference of State Legislators. For my opponent's claim 3, he said, concussions lead to negative psychological issues. My response is, this is true. However, there was a problem with the evidence he used. It did not apply to high school players. He used an example that was only relevant to extreme cases, not most cases. And when he said concussions can lead to sadness, this was shown in when he said concussions can lead to sadness and in extreme cases suicide. His example of 3 NFL players that committed suicide was not directly relevant to high school football players. On the other hand, this case of the NFL players did make some sort of impact on high school football. Again, the Chicago Tribune states, publicity over a lawsuit against the league by NFL players and new studies adding to the growing body of research, nearly every state entered the fall season with some type of legislation protecting young athletes. And then another claim that I came up with was, even with concussions, the popularity of football will not allow for it to be abolished. An article on the Fox News website claims that even with concussions, the popularity of football is not going to diminish. It says, despite well-established health risks and increasing number of former NFL players suffering memory loss, the number of high school football players continues to dwarf participation in other sports, namely track and field, basketball, and baseball. So high school football cannot be eliminated because it is crucial to the NFL. In conclusion, with more medical attention being given to high school football players, concussions will be dealt with and will not lead to the abolishment of high school football. And high school football is voluntary. It is a choice. So no one's being forced to play. And if you do play, you know that those people know the consequences of it. That's
All right, you ID'd the claims very clearly. I thought you had good counterclaims on the first and the third point. Skipping over the second point, you need to explain and remind us why it is that you don't think it's particularly important. Your counterclaim at the end, I think, is a pretty good piece of information that suggests that it's going to continue to be popular despite potential problems. I think the evidence that you read on the first and the third points is basically the same information. It's just a different paragraph saying the same thing, that there is legislation that's being adopted to address some of these issues. And I think the analysis of the advocate's evidence is pretty good. All right, thank you.